You're listening to the iRacers Lounge podcast, where we discuss everything iRacing in a casual setting. Enjoy. Welcome to the iRacers Lounge. I'm your host, Mike Ellis. iRacers Lounge is a podcast for the iRacer, where we talk all things iRacing in a casual setting. Joining me are the usual characters, Brian McCubbin.
Hey, Happy New Year, everybody.
Welcome. David Hall.
Hello.
Greg Hectus.
What's up, guys?
Hey, and Kyle Pendergraft. Welcome back.
First episode of 2023.
It is. And on today's show, we'll take a look at the newly released iRacing NASCAR Coke Series schedule. There's a new player in the sim racing market and maybe drawing talent from other platforms. We'll check out a change in direction poll and see what's the best wheel and base combo for under $500.
And you can follow along with this in real time on your PC or mobile device by going to iRacersLounge.com and selecting show notes. So hope to see you there.
All right, it's topic time, and we're going to start off with talking about ESL, who's making a move into sim racing. There's an upcoming sim racing platform called Rensports that is partnering with ESL, and it looks to shake up the racing esports driver market, with several top talents thought to have signed with squads new to the virtual motorsports scene. Traxion GG understands that several of the high-profile drivers have signed with the ESL affiliated teams, and either effective at the start of this year or after the upcoming 24-hour of Le Mans virtual event. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I was kind of surprised. I mean, I haven't really heard about this and much. I mean, I think I've heard of it. And in the article, they mentioned that last May they did have an initial meeting of the minds. So maybe that's where we heard about it. But this software isn't even released, and it's kind of the egg before the chicken kind of situation for me. I mean,
You mean like signing exclusivity for a game that's not released for a year?
exactly. Or like getting some tops, and these guys spent some money. I don't know how much, but you would have to guess they have to get some of the sim racing superstars involved with Rensport and ESL from the very beginning. And so, as reported, there were several, high profile drivers that have already announced they're leaving their current teams. Um, Brian, did you see who some of those? I think it was Max
Yeah,
Benecke, the from Team Redline. He's
yeah,
the
Max Benecke.
11,000 I rating guy.
Yeah, Max Benecke was one of them. And some guys who bailed out of Coanda.
Patrick
So,
Holzman also departed
yeah,
that scene.
Patrick Holzman. Yeah, some others. A guy who finished second last year in the the Jet Car series, the Tommy Utsgaard, and he was like one of the standouts in that series. So he was one of the top guys in that open wheel Jet Car series that they had.
Yeah, it says here, Brinsport is set to have a closed beta soon before a final release towards the end of 2023. Throughout the year, there are plans to run esport events with ESL.
So I'm guessing this is probably a road centric simulator. It's not oval stuff. Um, they've seemed to be tapping into the road course talent out there. Um, so I don't think any guys who are like a coke driver or anything like that are looking to bail and try this sim out.
Well, it'll
So
be
they seem to be following the model of the virtual Le Mans and the motorsport company and what they've done over there. And we were talking about that a little bit before the show, how they announced their roster basically for the virtual Le Mans, and it's like 180 people or something, but you have to be invited. It's not like it's open to the public. It's not like if you're on the service you can participate. You have to, be one of the chosen.
It seems kind of odd that. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the money that they're offering is luring these drivers without without really a sim to work with. I mean, I'm sure they probably get the early access to it or work with some of the betas, but um, they're going out a little bit on a limb by going over to this system without having anything concrete really in the market.
Right, like it's kind of early. Like what is he going to race between now and then? You know?
well, that might beg the next question: will sim racing become the next major esport player? We have a tweet from Luke Crane at Acrovision or Actual Vision, and he proclaims that this will be the year that sim racing becomes bigger. It becomes a bigger part of the esport landscape. Tell us a little bit about it, Kyle.
Yeah, so Luke Crane posted on Twitter, this will be the year that the sim racing becomes a major player in esports. By that I mean like a phase, optic, Illuminati, and complexity, to name a few, will be entering teams. This is my prediction for 2023 with this space.
I'm like, what? So, Kyle, you're kind of in the streaming stuff, and you've been in that. And what is he really talking about when he mentions those strange names?
Uh, Honestly, I
Phase,
really
optic, complexity, luminosity. Now I know what phase is, and I'll tell you why I know about that. My wife, who works at Wells Fargo, one of her coworkers, it's is Phase's mom, apparently. So she knows him that way.
um So really, I mean, when it comes to the streaming aspect of it, I mean, sim racing really was kind of a low key kind of thing for streaming when streaming first became a thing. Now it's starting to kind of pick up, and I think it really started back with the Pro Invitational back when COVID first happened, and now it's kind of gained some steam over the last few years. And I think it's now like he kind of basically put in here that it's eventually going to make its way into the big platforms of esports, like you get your Call of Duty esport tournaments and whatnot. I think iRacing or sim racing in general will reach that level here soon, along with Luke here.
I think my take on this is Phase and these guys, they've really built up a following, like you said, in other esports. Um, and they have depth because, people are joining their ranks. And them branching out into sim racing could be just adding to that depth. Hey, we have enough people. We have some guys here that are with us, but they race, and so we're gonna put them into sim racing and enter the scene. But for the one guy who's really good at Call of Duty, I don't think it translates that he just gets into the sim race and performs.
Yeah, matter of fact, didn't we had a story a while ago where like a prominent esports person got into sim racing and they were just terrible. I don't know if they were. I don't mean that they were slow, but they had no racecraft at all. It was really ugly to watch.
I think you have to get racers to race racing esports, not just gamers. It has to be something where it's always been an element of your interest from the get go. Because yeah, you talk about racecraft and that the competitiveness that comes from that, and plus with racing, other than if you're doing driver swaps and things like that. For the most part, online, it ends up being a somewhat individual sport.
Well, I mean, back to what we were talking about with motorsports and their virtual Le Mans, they did just that. They have actual F1 racers. They have the F1 champ, the F2 and the F3 champ, apparently, including Max Verstappen and others participating, and they're on the roster, and so they're doing it. When we were doing with iRacing, it was more of a hodgepodge. People just organically join, and you hear, oh yeah, Max is in the race, and all these other people. When we run the 24 hours of Daytona later, uh, we're going to see, celebrities in there, celebrity drivers, as you would call them.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. We could probably put a wrap on that, and instead, next, let's talk, Brian, about Tyler's new wrap.
Yeah, this is comes from a tweet from Tyler Hudson, who is a staff member at iRacing, but he's also a fairly accomplished dirt late model ride driver, and he unveiled his new iRacing themed wrap that he put on his new body for his late model. So yeah, Tyler, I remember we had a couple stories about Tyler getting some wins this past summer. He's looking to go back out for another good season, and he's got the car looking really nice with the iRacing logo stuff on it. I really like the side panels on there with the iRacing logo that's integrated with the numbers and the colors. It's really nice.
White front, red back, got some black on there too, so the iRacing really stands out on the quarter panel, and some blue in front of the front tire, with the iRacing guy with his hands in the air, of course, and yeah, it looks great.
You notice that number is really far back, too. Hmm.
Yeah, the 01, that's traditionally his number too.
Was it ever disclosed who the iRacing guy modeled from, or wasn't that like some kind of state secret?
No, wait, I remember this. I think it was actually based on Dave, if I remember right, it was Dave Kamer, the founder of iRacing. He apparently did some real racing at Lime Rock and like some Mazdas or something, and it's based off of that, I think.
Well, that would make sense for him to be on it. Well, he's basically built the thing.
Not sure. That's what I have from my memory. I've been doing this a long time, this show.
All right, I'm definitely going to chime in on this next one. We've got a poll in the forums presented by Marley Harrison, and we've hit this topic before, and I guess we're going to dig into it again. Should we have a series specific I rating? And he's basically kind of thinking his rationale is that he's not as good in a Skip Barber as he is in a GT3 or vice versa, and so he thinks that there should be an individual iRacing for every series. If you look at the poll, it's kind of close between series and between the current system, whereas per car and another option are really low. So it's like 43% say I like the current system, and 39% say we should have series specific I ratings.
Well, before, I think when we talked about it was per car, which I think makes sense. I don't know about doing it by per series.
Yeah, that's also a little bit awkward if you're doing it per in a multi-class race because I some people are. I mean, different scores, different cars, different series, different classes. You're going to have different strengths. I just don't think it would actually really make that much difference on who you're going to end up racing in the long run. If
So
and if you really care about your I rating getting high, you basically need to create a ghost account and only race the races you're good at on the one account, and then use another account for all your fun stuff.
let's do it for example. If it was by car, and I'm a GT3 driver, and I build up my A license and my I rating on the Ferrari, and then I switched to a BMW. I'm a rookie in the BMW, even though I have a nice I rating and a license in the other car. So I don't think it makes sense to do it that way.
Or imagine anytime they actually create a new series and you're a 10,000 I rating guy, right?
Right now, you're a
You're gonna,
rookie.
yeah, it would create a lot of nasty races because the races already have some sloppiness because no, we're not pros on there. But I always find the A Open races during the season that go the worst are the ones where you have a 5,000 I rating guy in the same field as a 1,200 I rating guy because they're just not used to being around each other. And the style of racing in a field of 4,000 guys is just not the same as the style of I racing in the field of 1,500 guys. So generally, I find when there's a big wide spread, you get a lot sloppier racing. So if you do this where everybody's going to start rookie anytime they switch cars, it's going to create a lot of sloppy, just really unfun, unbalanced racing.
Now, under the current system, your I rating could be by car depending on how you race. Like the way I usually race is throughout the year, I'm A car only on ovals, and I'm usually NIS only. And so my oval I rating is really a true representation of my I rating in that car because that's the only car I'm in.
And that's why I said if you really want to push your I rating up, you have to just focus on the series that you're good at for that discipline and leave the others be or use a different account.
Now, what is the argument he's making here to do it by series? I mean, I don't see any upside to that at all.
Well, it could be based on almost more like class. Like instead of being the Toyota versus the Chevy versus the Ford, that whole Class A car or GT3 class car or GTE class car, I think it's almost more what he's aiming for.
So I could be in the GT3 Ferrari and easily go to the BMW in the same
Yeah,
series.
the only way to me it makes any sense at all is if you separate maybe the open wheel from the GT stuff in the road. Um, Even that is a little sketchy to make that argument, but that's the only place where I can see that there's more of a bigger difference from one from one two different types of cars in the same license, road license.
What I think an idea would be was if they gave your I rating, per license. So let's say you are an A license regardless, and you want to step down and do a C license race, you should have a C license I rating. So that way, if there's a bunch of high C guys in there, then they're all in the same race for sure. You're not mixing the A's and C's all together.
That sounds complicated.
It logistically it is a little complicated if you think about it, but I think it would probably solve a lot of issues.
Well,
I
if you
I
if you look
voted
at
on
the
the poll,
well, what
David. I was going to say I voted to keep it how it is, just because I think it's worked. I mean, we've been doing this for over 10 years, and they haven't really changed it. And when we added dirt, I mean, it was a natural progression of the licensing and I rating system. Hey, we'll have dirt road, we'll have dirt oval. It's perfect. And if another, racing discipline, lands on our plate, a brand new one, then we have a way of doing it.
And if you look at the NIS series, it's a Class C series, right? However, it's almost I don't think I've seen in an NIS race in 5 years a Class C driver or a Class B driver in my field. Okay. So all of your guys that can really run the high end series are gonna be an A license and have a high I rating because they have both speed and racecraft.
Yeah, I mean, license is fluid. I mean, you can go from ABC and back up and down pretty easily.
Well, also when you get most of the A races are longer, so you just have to have a couple of clean A races and you get a ton of safety rating back. All right, next up, Brian, we have something about session admin chat commands.
Yeah, let me check this out. But basically, it's we found this in the iRacing support page, where it shows you how to be an admin for chat commands. So the session admin commands must be entered in the iRacing simulator text chat window while the sim is loading. So that's an interesting tip to get this thing to work. But they can be used in short form or long. The bold letters indicate the short form of the command. So I don't know. I don't really do any hosting stuff, so I'm not really doesn't really apply to me. But
I'm sorry to
if
interrupt.
it's
Did you say while the sim is loading or loaded?
well, it says while the sim is
Okay.
loaded. Yeah,
All right, gotcha.
Now you just
but there's a
basically type in this word, right?
yeah, and then there's it has a whole list of commands. I recommend if something you're interested in looking at, go into come to our website and follow the link, and it'll show you all the general commands, and it'll show you what all they do.
Yeah, the most common one for people who run hosted races or leagues is exclamation point clear all, which kind of just dumps all the black flags and DQs and EOLs for the whole field.
Yeah, EOL, wave by, yellow flag, those kind of things.
And you can do them
Now,
by right clicking on the name on a lot of them too. Some of these don't work by right clicking, but some of them do, especially if they're
Yeah,
driver specific.
and these keywords that we mentioned, they all start with an exclamation point. So what you do is if you're in the car driving as an admin, you hit the letter T, which makes it where you can type, and then you put exclamation point, clear all. And then that would clear all the black flags. Enter. And or if you're a smart admin, you tie all these things to macros on buttons, and then you label all the buttons, and then you have one for every command. Pretty
yeah.
cool.
But this is a really good resource to find out how to do all this stuff. If is by following our link here.
And the neat one to try, even if you're not an admin, is the exclamation point help, HELP, enter. It'll actually show you a list of these commands we're talking about.
Go ahead and check that link out on our website if you want to get there and try to use these commands. It's very handy. I know we've covered this before, but it's probably been a year or two. Next up, we do have Mike something to do with Junior, and he's talking about chat stutter or something along the lines of a problem with replay playback.
Yeah, this is the second time I think we've heard from Dale Jr. iRacing staff member Dale Jr. posted a topic in the forums asking if there's been any resolution to the stuttering many are finding in the playback. And I don't think he found any answers that I saw.
I have one hypothesis. I guess I should reply, but your graphic settings for replay are not the same as your graphic settings for live. It's a whole different page. So he may just have his replay settings turned up too high.
So he did have another staff member, Michael Hinkle, did reply that they did add it to the bug tracker. But yeah, that's saying something if the director of iRacing is having computer problems or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave. Sometimes I will crank up the settings on the replays because I figure I'm just watching it. I don't worry about the frame rates quite as much as if I'm driving, and it will I will get a little bit more stuttering and stuff like that on the replay than I will actually when I'm driving.
And also, the replay settings are active. At least some of them are active if you're in a race and when you're out of the car, when you switch over basically out of the car where you can watch the replay. It switches to the replay quality instead of the race quality. And I kind of discovered this because I once was like, I'll just turn everything all the way up on replay. And when I was sitting in the garage, everything was just horrifically the client would almost crash. But then if I jumped in the car, it would stabilize. Next up, we have a guy that is name is David Beadle, or is it Betty? Or there's got to be Beatty, right?
BD, I'd say.
Beatty, yeah. And he thinks the current state of the NSIM is a complete and utter joke. And I think he's just complaining about there not being enough damage in some situations. What do you think, Kyle?
Uh, so I don't know. Maybe I don't know the cars all as well as I thought I did, but there's sometimes that an impact will happen, and it's like there should have been some damage, but there wasn't. I'll take for instance, I was in a race with Steve the other night, and I got nailed in the right front, nailed hard, and the car drove fine. Aerodynamically, it was fine. Did have a little bit of damage on the clock, but it was like what should have been totaled or a tow link. It didn't happen. So something is not right there. And I even made sure I got hit where I thought I did to make sure I didn't get hit in the door. And I got hit right on the right front tire, but yet the car was fine. So yeah, something I think they need to take a look at and maybe see if there's some tweaks that need to be made for that damage model for sure.
Yeah, apparently this
That's the
guy was
thing.
running an Indy car or a blank 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 car,
But
and he was trucking along at 220 miles an hour and had a really hard crash and got almost pretty much no damage. Um, and that used to happen to me like at Daytona a few years ago, where if you were in a bad enough crash, you just didn't get any damage for whatever reason. The damage model just like zoned out for whatever reason. You know, like a typical crash, you get banged up really good. But if you got into a thing where you really hit somebody hard for some reason, it just didn't register anything.
But he says here that he lost two of his wheels, basically, that the wheels hubs came disconnected. That means you're done. That means you're towing, which means you're all right. And they do have it where you can basically get the damage fixed, but especially in road races, you're not getting that time back. So whether it should have graphically looked better and looks more like he got hurt. If your wheels are off the car, you're basically done anyway. So I don't see what the big deal is.
I think it's fine.
I mean, yeah, it could always be better, but I mean, if he's towing, then you're pretty much you're suffering the same consequences whether it looks like it or not.
All right, Mike, I'm throwing this next one to you because Chicago is your favorite city. So tell us a little bit about sim racing Chicago.
Yeah, I found this Sim Racing Chicago. It's a professional driving simulator studio that features 10 fully built simulators. These simulators are designed to showcase the best of what sim racing has to offer. Our studio is available for any events that you may want to be organizing. And we got a promotional video, and it looks pretty nice. I mean, it's kind of a dark, bar kind of setting. There's couches set up and large TVs up above the rig where you can see timing and scoring and different things. It looks like they're set up for like tournaments and stuff like that.
That's pretty cool. We've seen these type of um, things pop up at other places. I don't know how many of them have been super successful, but if you're in a place like Chicago with a high density population density, maybe something like this would work. They're going to get a lot of attention this year when NASCAR comes here for their road course. So who knows? Maybe that would be a good tie-in to make this a successful venture.
Yeah, a lot of these environments, they almost need something like dining or alcohol to sell to really bring the money in.
Yeah, like a Dave and
That's
Buster's type of thing.
that's what I'm looking at when I finally found a picture on their website, simracingchicago.com. It's like a large warehouse, and the front desk, I would call it the front desk where you go and sign up or whatever. It's like a big display cases of steering wheels, so you can like pick the wheel you want to use, and it looks pretty cool. I don't see any food or beverage, but there's places to sit and wait or watch, and um, yeah, neat. We talked about Podium One is the name of a company in Nashville trying to do the same thing. Now, I don't think they actually have it set up like these guys. These guys are ready to go. Now, they don't take walk-in customers, but you have to reserve for groups two or more.
It's almost like the go-kart track of today, you know. It's a tech version of a track where, instead of taking a group and driving go-karts against each other, you just do it virtually. Um, so yeah, and that way your go-karts don't get the heck beat out of them like you usually see at those places.
I'd love to see one of these in Phoenix. On a side note, I also saw a story that the F1 arcade is expanding rapidly in the United States, and they're going to do something similar where they put simulators uh, in big cities, in a room like this, and call it F1 arcade.
And capitalizing on that F1 increase in popularity.
This next topic is a dyslexic person's nightmare. All right. Anybody want to try to pronounce that?
I'm not sure what happened there, but
It's
Well,
it's Ciceric Noid Cerid, which is direction crisis backwards.
it sounds very Scandinavian.
oh,
It's direction crisis spelled backwards because this next topic came from the forums where Caleb Balick posted his idea for a week 13 series called Direction Crisis, where all the races would be run on tracks in the reverse direction. Which sound and he put a poll up with it as well, so you could vote whether you thought a Direction Crisis series would be a good idea. And it's actually, last I checked, it was doing really well in the poll. Um, it was well had a lot more votes than for than against, um, and it would probably create a lot of issues with iRacing as far as if you try to run a course backwards, it's going to throw up all kinds of black flags and kick you out of the service if you do it in a session. But maybe they could make that work. So wonder what kind of race courses would be idea for a reverse series.
Well, it's pretty neat with the. I'm sorry, I meant to say the votes are low and count, but it is a pretty high percentage. Ovals would be interesting, except you'd almost want to run in a right seated car if you're going to go opposite direction in ovals. So I would almost want to do it in a supercar.
The setups for an oval car would be terrible running backwards because they're completely made to turn the other way. It's not like a road course where you make lefts and rights. You're always making left turns, and that's where your car is designed and set up to. And I mean, unless you completely reverse the settings, or the reverse the setup, maybe that would work.
Yeah, but there aren't there even some settings that are simply not symmetrical. You can't flip them one way or the other. They're simply designed. They run on a diagonal instead, or something like that, where you
Yeah.
can't just completely mirror it.
well, the next gen car is asymmetrical if we're talking about that car, but I was thinking the fantasy track, that would be a good one to start with. Let's make it where you can run that one backwards. The iRacing Super Speedway.
Yeah, and any of the road courses, it would be pretty interesting too.
Yeah,
Bathurst.
that would be do the Nordschleife backwards. That would be fun to learn. Take you a little while to learn that one in reverse, maybe.
Yeah, that
Line
would be fun.
Line Rock would feel almost like a NASCAR track if it was all left turns instead of right turns.
Yeah, I think there would be some fun tracks that would be good backwards. I think that would be a cool thing to do if iRacing could, like I said, if iRacing could get it to where it's not going to throw red flags, and I mean, it's probably not that simple to do that, um, just because of the timing and everything else. Who knows what would be involved?
Well, one place they're not going to be running backwards on the track, or if they are, it's a bad sign for their season, is in the Coke Series. And Mike, we have the 2023 Coke Series released.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised. Some changes. I think the biggest change is we end in the end of September instead of the end of October.
Hang on. No one's going to address the elephant in the room. Monza on the list.
Yeah, that's another big one, Monza.
But one thing I do see, not to cut in on your topic here, Mike, but you talking about the end of the season. Look where it's ending at instead of where the NASCAR season would end at. Homestead.
Homestead.
Nostalgic.
So some surprises. I mean, so you got the Clash, you got the Daytona, and then Milwaukee Mile right there, right after Daytona. So that's a new one. And then they go to Atlanta, the new configuration for the first time in the Coke Series as the fourth race. Richmond, and then as you said, Monza. Now it's the road course of Monza without the chicanes.
So that's definitely set. They're not putting it in there as a placeholder for Chicago.
I don't know. Chicago is until July 4th weekend, so it's way off compared to what NASCAR is running. And I mean, Chicago's on the service already, right? So they wouldn't have to need a placeholder for it.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know what the idea there is. Maybe they just think that it won't be a good race.
Yeah, because that would be typically the week that they run the Dirt Bristol race. So maybe they didn't think that was a good idea to do with the Cup drivers.
I think they should use
Well,
the combined configuration.
well, when I first heard Monza, I was thinking Monza Oval.
Mm-hmm.
Now that would have been interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, the combined configuration does the oval and the road course, except you go around the oval backwards.
There you go. Go backwards on the course.
No, it's backwards compared to any regular oval, but you're still going in the regular direction on the road course.
So,
I guess
but
that proves you can do it, Brian. You just have to make a whole new configuration.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that, but yeah, Monza you can go either direction on with the oval.
but what I'm curious is if they put Monza in there, which is definitely not a NASCAR race at all, and they want to stick as close as they can to the NASCAR schedule, why didn't they stick with a NASCAR sanctioned track? That's what I'm
Good
curious
point.
of.
It's a very
I don't
good
know.
question
Well,
for them.
Well, if they were skipping Bristol because it's dirt that week, why not just do regular Bristol? Because regular Bristol's not on the schedule at all. So they're skipping Bristol altogether, and the week that they're doing Bristol dirt, they're going to Monza.
Good point.
I'm just guessing they didn't want to do dirt, and I don't know. And they like they don't want to step on the toes of NASCAR either. They don't want to publicize a track that's different than the track they're going to, and especially if they're competing tracks, in the NASCAR circuit. So maybe that's has something to do with it. The other one that's in there later. So we talked about Monza, then it's Talladega, Vegas, Darlington, and they notated that's going to be like a throwback, and they're expecting, throwback paint. Charlotte, and then Gateway, which is new this year. Gateway, and I think the trucks are going to Gateway, right? The same weekend, and that's where maybe why that's there.
And Charlotte is the oval too. It's not the Roval this year. There's no Charlotte Roval on the schedule.
So how many road courses?
For the Coke series, only two.
Yeah, just Monza and Watkins Glen.
Yep.
Yeah, so after Gateway, Watkins Glen, Nashville, New Hampshire returns, and then Pocono, the last race of the final season, and then the last races are Michigan, Dover, Phoenix, and then the finale in Homestead. And like you said, Kyle, for them to do a different finale track than what NASCAR is doing, that really seems odd.
Maybe they're trying to send a message to NASCAR. Hey, take it back.
I'm sure NASCAR has a lot of say in what the schedule is.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the decision to go to Monza. I really like to hear what they had to say about it. I'm not dead set against it. I mean, it's not like the teams have to physically travel there like if NASCAR did, but just curious what their thought process was on that. I'm sure there's going to be enough people curious about it that they're going to have to make some kind of statement as to why they did that. Who knows? It might even be the truth.
So gone from the schedule from 2022 are Kansas and Road America. I mean, no, any loss there? I mean, NASCAR really ditched Road America, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they can never say again that it's about whether or not the crowds are coming to the track because they had record attendance.
Yeah.
Okay, as I mentioned before, a key point was that we'll end a full month earlier in September as opposed to end of October. This could lead to a change in schedules for Road to Pro qualifying and Contender Series, but we'll have to wait and see.
Now, is it the same number of races or are there just fewer breaks?
It doesn't look like there's a all-star break. Didn't they used to do an all-star break like when NASCAR did?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see any breaks. Everything looks like it's spaced out to every 2 weeks without any exception. And I'll speak up for Donnie since Donnie's not here. Um, I don't know why they don't have North Wilkesboro on here, whether it be an official race or some kind of special event type of race.
Good point. I mean, they got the Clash, Brian, listed as part of the schedule, and it's a non-points race.
And Chicago, the Chicago Street Course is July 4th week, and they skipped that, which is kind of interesting because I think there's going to be a lot of hoopla. It's a big holiday week, and NASCAR is going to be there for the first time. I don't know how great of the race it's going to be, but I think that I would have thought that iRacing would have capitalized in some of the hype that's going to surround that race.
Yeah, we got video from iRacing as well that kind of goes over the schedules to make it easy to consume. That was nice.
And Mike, I'm sorry, you did mention that they're doing the LA Coliseum Clash again this year.
Yeah, it's at the top of the schedule there, and
Yeah.
it's a non-points event. Now, I got a quote from iRacing President Tony Gardner. The 2023 schedule is a mix of the tracks that have provided us with the most exciting races in series history, including a return to Homestead for the finale and some new venues that will throw even our most experienced drivers a curveball early in the season. We can't wait to kick things off with the Clash later this month.
All right. Well, we look forward to it. It's going to be really interesting now that they've gone with that shakeup at Monza. It kind of makes me want to go jump in the car and try it there. Not really. I'd rather run it in a GTE. We got one more main topic to hit, and that is a group called Grip Gripworx Racing, which is based in
Reports.
Seattle. Gripworks, okay. Um, Again, these kind of things just hammer a dyslexic person. Uh, it's east of Seattle, and you can rent time in a highly immersive simulator.
Yeah, so we talked about Chicago and now we got Seattle. We talked about Nashville a few weeks ago. So yeah, they're coming out of the woodworks, guys. And this one is a little more low key than the Chicago one. A well lit office environment, large room, wood floors, and several cockpits set up, different styles. And yeah, looks like fun.
And they got four different cockpits sitting in at least that little main room, and then a couple of TVs up on the wall that I guess are using other accounts to connect and track.
So I looked at pricing. It says gloves are $2. As a COVID precaution, we require drivers to wear gloves. You get a punch card, and uh, I don't actually see. Oh, here's the pricing. One session is 15 minutes for $20. Three sessions, you get one free. That's 60 minutes. So for $60, you get 60 minutes, it sounds like. Now, all you can drive day pass, $100.
That's actually a little bit cheaper than some go kart places. I seem to remember the go kart track over at Gateway being a little bit higher than that.
I think it's reasonable. They also have a page for the different simulators they have and the equipment details. Looks like nice stuff. I mean, this first one has got a cube controls wheel and a semi-cube 2 base. Can't tell if it's a sport or a pro. Looks like Heiskenveld pedals. SimLab chassis. Flex shifter. For base shakers. Pretty cool.
Well, it mentions in the advertisement here that it says you can pick your poison of which type of racing you want to do, drifting or road racing. So if it's drifting, they're definitely not using iRacing, right? So they must have a different software for this.
Yeah. And you got to imagine, you got to figure out commercial licensing. I mean, these places just can't open and sign into iRacing, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, and I get you would have to have your own iRacing account to get on, even if you go to a location.
So
Yeah.
all these
How do they do
businesses,
that? Sorry,
go ahead.
I was gonna say. So, how do they do that if you need your license at the trailers, like the NASCAR events, where you can hop onto iRacing and do laps and stuff like that?
They just leave it on a certain account. Um,
Okay.
probably okay by iRacing, and understanding that it's being run by different people and it's used for promotion. And
Okay.
you can't go in there and start switching settings. You know, I've run it once. I don't remember which track I was at, but they had a sim set up somewhere, and you couldn't change anything. Couldn't even go in and mess with the steering ratio.
I was going to say, with these businesses popping up, if you wanted to start one where you lived, I mean, what kind of capex, I mean, investment would you need to get something like this off the ground? I mean, this one in Seattle is probably as low key as you can get to really pull it off. I mean, the one in Chicago looks a lot like it costs 3 or 4 times as much, because they have more stuff. But they got, they got office space, to put it in. They got the 4 rigs, probably a counter to take the money and a cash register, and that's what they got. So if you add all that up, I'm still thinking it's, 200,000.
Well, and real estate's not too cheap in any city either.
Right. You're leasing space, and you got to have a lot of customers to pay the bills. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the business model works. We'll have to see.
Well, what does work though is Brian tell us about the World of Outlaws Week 6.
Yeah, so week 6 we were at Fairbury Speedway in Illinois. It's a smaller little track, about a 3/8 mile oval. Really, a really interesting race today because this time James Edens winds up taking the win. That's his second win in a row. He won last week as well. Um, he's the him and Hayden Carwell are the only repeat winners so far this season. Second place went to Kenny Miller, who won the race at Lincoln Speedway early this year. He is a rookie to the season to the series here, and he's really making a good show of things. So it was a really good season for him as far as rookies go. Now Timothy Smith finished third, and why is that important? Because Timothy Smith was in third place in points leading up to this race, but both Alex Bergeron and Tyler Shell, who were 1 and 2 coming into this race, both were involved in incidents and finished towards the back of the field. So after the points were dealt out, Timothy Smith actually has a 2 point lead now over Alex Bergeron
Oh.
after week 6. Tyler Shell dropped to third after his incident points, but yeah, it was really cool because Alex and Tyler were both up in the top 10, both having decent races. Not great for Alex, especially because he was around eighth or ninth and not really making any progress. But he got involved into a wreck that sent him to the back of the field and really turned the points on its head. So we got a new leader heading into week 7. So this championship race looks like it's going to come down right to the wire. And Timothy Smith, with his point leads, he actually has not won a race yet this season. So he's just been really consistent. Had a couple near misses, a couple P2s, and just couldn't get it done a couple times. But he's been racking up the points and not had any big mistakes or big bad weeks to put him behind. So week 7's coming up. There's only 3 weeks left after this race, or 4 weeks left. I'm sorry. And we'll see if there's a new champion or if Alex Bergeron can hang on to win another title.
You reckon?
All right, we covered them pretty far in depth, so I'm just going to quick hit our events that are coming up. We have the iRacing special events coming up first, the 2023 iRacing Roar. That's going to be January 13th through 15th, and it's going to feature the touring cars, the GT4s, and the Toyota GR86. By this point, you know the starting times are 22, 7, 12, and 16 on Saturday. That's all GMT. Got to have a D4.0. So runs for 2.4 hours. Hop in there and get you some track time at Daytona. And then also the big one, the 2023 iRacing Daytona 24, powered by VCO. This is featuring all the new IMSA cars. Same start times, but the next weekend, the 20th through the 22nd. Still got to have that D4.0, and it's got a 30-minute warm up with dynamic weather. The qualifying is attached, and it's all the IMSA cars. Field size of 50.
Not this weekend, but next weekend is the Roar, and then 2 weekends away is the 24.
And they do note that they'll do the balance of power 1 week prior to the event. And it's going to be interesting because with how they make some of those decisions, because I don't know if it's because they just couldn't figure it out because they had to wait so long to put out the special events calendar, but IMSA's not running this track the same week. They're running it like a few weeks later. So that's kind of disappointing that people are not going to get to do all that practice. on the IMSA track. Uh, but yeah, they'll put the balance of power out the week prior. I know we've been practicing in the BMW at Watkins Glen and a few other tracks, and Mike is a tire murderer.
We found that out. So we did run a practice race at Daytona, and that was good. And you got a schedule kind of put together, right? And so we're making progress.
Yeah, we're set to go. I've got the schedule can always change, but if nothing comes up, our time slots are set.
Okay. Are we looking for more drivers?
Not for our group. We've already got 5.
Okay. And the other group, I think they still need somebody, right?
I don't know if Joe has actually gotten in touch with Tony or not. I guess we'll sort that out, or they'll sort that out.
Yeah, I was tweeting with some guy, actually a previous guest, Kevin Ruckers Kev is his name. He was looking for a team, and but he wanted to run the LMP too.
And so far, my fears about the LMT2 just completely disappearing from the server has not really come up. I've been seeing them in every race that I'm in, so I think we should be able to see a split with all 3 classes when we get in.
Podcast housekeeping. Leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to make it easier for more listeners to find the podcast. Mention the podcast to your fellow drivers so they don't miss out. We do appreciate it. Check out our Discord. We have a lot of activity going over there. Our website, of course, is iRacersLounge.com. We're in regular rotation at Performance Motorsports Network. And Kyle, I'm going to throw this part to you. Tell us about the Roku TV iRock channel. I'll hear you.
All right. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Push talk. So the iRock TV channel was what used to be the sim racing channel. Um, the new current owner, Brian Rick, purchased it from Jim. Jim had a lot going on, so he was able to really manhandle that. So Brian decided to purchase it from him and put his spin on it. So it's still the same as it was before as far as content and standards, everything else. Nothing's changed. All it is the name, basically. It's the only change. We did add in an extra stream key for that, so we can kind of get more streams up at once. Once we see that's going to take off pretty good, we are going to actually upgrade to more stream keys as well. So be sure, if you have a Roku device, download the iRock TV channel to your Roku. That way, if you're sitting in bed or watching on the couch and you want to watch some sim racing, go for it. Also, if you want to watch your podcast here, go for it. We're all right there on the iRock TV.
All right, kicking off the hardware software sponsored by Metro Ford. We're going to first talk about the best wheel combo under 500. Brian, take this one.
Yeah, this was a video posted by Sean Cole from the Sim Pit, where he kind of just went through all the, I'll call them entry level wheel and rim setups that you can get for under $500. So he goes over the Logitechs, the Thrustmaster, and all the ones that you're familiar with, and to try to figure out which one he liked the best. I'm going to check it out again real quick because I don't remember what he decided on, because this we've been pushing this story off for a couple weeks because we've been so backed up.
Uh, the list, I'll give the list here. So we have the brand new company we talked about once before, PXN, with a $300 wheel. Then you have the Logitech version at 400, but on sale at 300. And then 3 Thrustmaster options. I think he landed on the Thrustmaster option, one of those, depending on what you can afford. There's a 400, a 450, and a $500 option.
All right. Well, this next part or rig that we're looking at is going to be a lot more than 500 bucks. Asatec is now selling the carbon fiber from their LMPs that can be actually used by a designer to make an LMP rig.
This is crazy. So
Yeah, that's really
they
cool.
had
Cool.
they had this car at the Sim Racing Expo. That's where it started. Apparently they bought it because now they're trying to, get rid of it. So you are the customer, you can buy it. Now, not the whole thing, but you can buy body parts and different things off of it so you can recreate your own sim racing, LMP. So it's 15,000 euros is the asking price. It says, should you decide to grab the carbon fiber exterior of this LMP3 vehicle, you'll be given a factory tour as well. To get you started on your creation of your ultimate rig, Acetec includes their top-end Invecta pedals and their 27 nm wheelbase plus a 40 steering wheel. Not a bad deal for the 15,000. So they'll throw in all their new product with it as well. And there's actually two complete sets of fiber bodywork for sale, including headlights, LEDs, even the rear wing. The car itself is not included. If you need a roof, windshield, or doors, you can purchase those from Ligier.
I wonder if that's because the chassis is actually still usable, but the body rules have changed, and so they're actually going to be able to use the chassis, but just have to swap out the body.
There's some reason they're selling it. Yeah, why not?
How
So the
cool would that
question
be
is,
to
did anyone buy it?
yeah. How cool would that be to have your rig set up like that with the full
There's some
body
rich
panels
fella
from
out there that's
LMP
bought it.
two?
I would really enjoy looking at it every time I have my VR on. Oh wait,
And it's got the Asetek Sim Sport paint job on it too. So it's got the black and orange, and yeah, it looks cool.
all right. I think I watched this next video, but I don't remember because like you said, we're catching up on the hardware topics. This one was put out by Sim Racer Corner, yeah, and it basically explains the basics that you need to know about load cell pedals and how it changes the braking amount that you use by force instead of by the force that you're pushing down rather than the actual movement of the pedal. All right. Have you checked this one out, Kyle?
Can't hear you.
Yeah, you're going to sip over me while I get this fixed.
All
I
right.
watched it.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll mention. We always talk about these pedals all the time, and if you don't have the basic understanding of what the differences are, it can be a little overwhelming. So I appreciate videos like this that are kind of like back to basics. Okay, let's explain it to me like I'm five, and that's kind of what this is. But you have a G27 Logitech pedal. You know, the pedal amount is how much you're pushing it down. Very simple. You push it down 100%, you're 100% on the pedal. With these other ones, it's not if you how much you push it. It's the 100% throw. It's the force of that squeezing those pads down and that pressure. How much actual pressure are you putting on the pedal to get to a certain point? And honestly, hydraulic pedals work very much the same way. You're pushing down a force, and so load cell and hydraulic are very similar. It's just the way that they go about it are different. And I guess for 2023 we have a third one type of pedal, and that's the new SemiCube one. That's all based on direct drive.
I guess that's actually fourth, right? Instead of just
Yeah.
going off of Hall effect sensors.
Hmm.
All right, Brian, the next thing we have is the SimCore SD-1XL from that includes an SDC.
Yeah, so a pretty cool looking button box. Actually, technically, I guess it's a streaming deck, but so it's made by Simcore. It's a SD1XL. It's got a whole array of looks like 30 buttons on it. 36. No, it would be
32.
32. Yeah, 32 buttons with encoders on the side, rotary dial, and so a couple other things. I think that's all included with this. So it's a yeah. If you're looking for a stream deck, you might want to check this out because it's got a couple other options to it that'll make it really customizable.
Now, what SimCore is selling here, though, is the enclosure for the Stream Deck. And what's really caught my eye is not really the enclosure, but this button box coming off the side of it. And so that's a separate piece that they sell, $185. But man, it looks
Hmm.
freaking cool.
It looks decent, but
Yeah,
not a whole lot of functionality for that price.
for $185 seems a little steep.
And basically, that little button box thing, it kind of bolts onto the side of the Stream Deck enclosure, so
Okay,
you
I
end up
got you.
with both of them.
Well, it looks like it comes in different colors too. We saw like that anodized red. There's a yellow that looks pretty neat too. Um, and it looks like it's got some stickers too that you can label them. Traction control, volume, menus, mapping buttons, and brake bias buttons or stickers, I should say.
The other thing that sets this apart from other products is the part facing you has a couple knobs and a joystick, but then the side of it that's kind of facing off to your right has three knobs on it too. So you have buttons, knobs on two sides of this box, basically, the front and the side, which is unique.
Looks
Which,
like you'll be able to
to
mount
me,
it.
I'd use those for volumes, you just reach over and twist.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put any. Uh, Depending on where you mount it, I don't think it's going to be a real easy place to reach, just because it's set off the side of the stream deck. Um, in the picture we have here on the script, it's on the right hand side, and then he's got triple monitors. It's almost to the edge of the third monitor on the right hand side. So um, I don't know if I'd put anything on there that's really important for you to be able to do while you're driving because you're going to be reaching quite a bit to reach those things if it's attached to the stream deck.
It's really off. It would really be off to the right, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's usually right where people have their shifters and handbrakes and, those kind of items. So I was thinking if I mounted this product, on the right side, it would definitely interfere with my shifter and it wouldn't work.
All right, this next one is actually a little bit more closer to the core. It's the DSD Fobster, and the script should probably be updated because this Instagram post is 2 weeks old, and it says the Fobster is due out next week. So it's been released probably at this point, and this is just basically I guess it looks like maybe a Velcro or some other way attached button that you can put on any oval rim, and it's got a joystick on it as well as two buttons.
80 bucks. And you can order now and they ship by January 23rd. And it's got two strap holes on it. So you can like Velcro it to your oval rim. That's the whole idea. Now, what's awkward to me about this is you still have to plug it into a USB. He does include an angle head USB for free to make it a little less awkward, but imagine you're turning your oval wheel and there's a wire, come flying around, as well. This seems weird.
Well, looking at it, you can actually see where the wire connects on the inside of it. So I think that makes it even more awkward.
Right, where you might put your hand as you're, grabbing the joystick, right?
Yeah. No.
And,
I'm,
and
I'm
one of
sure there'll be revisions.
and one of the last pictures has multiple items attached to the same wheel, which would get an even more clutter. You definitely wouldn't have cable management in this situation.
His pictures look great because there's no cables.
I don't. To me, it looks like that joystick would be in danger of getting ripped off if you're running a wheel with high force feedback and it's starting to spin around on you real fast. You're just grabbing for whatever you can. If you hit that joystick, is it going to just rip it right off?
I would think you would put it on the spoke and not up on the actual wheel, but
Well, that's not the way they have it in the pictures, but you could be right
right.
though. Yeah, it could be done that way.
You can order different colors too for an extra $10.
Well, this next one comes from Traxion, and it's basically a price guide for the current direct drive wheels. And it's got every one of them listed.
It doesn't actually. uh, there's Sim Magic is missing from this list, so a lot of commenters on the video were quick to point that out, especially the ones that own the Sim Magic wheels. But it is a pretty comprehensive list, and so that's why I ended up putting it on here so we could just kind of say them out loud and make sure everybody knows what's available. So let's just hit them. So Fanatec, nothing's changed there. You got the DD1, the DD2. They're 1200 or 1500. You also have the DD and the DD Pro. Okay, they're 350 or 200 more to get to the 8NM. Um, so Fanatec. Then you have Moza, and they have their entry level R5 and R9 at 350 or 439, and then their R16 and R21, 1000 or 1200. Ace we talked about them from the Sim Racing Expo. They announced their 3 new wheelbases that are really not out in the wild yet. They're got a bundle at 840, a wheel at 800, and one at 1200. You have the new Logitech at 1000, Thrustmaster at 650. That's also new. You have the older VRS at 800, the Camus at 900, Leo Bodner 4,585. We won't even mention that one. And finally, the SimuCube, they left the best for last. The Sports, the Pro, and the Ultimate. The Sport is 1292, the Pro 1500, and the Ultimate 3276.
Another mission here is AccuForce too. I would have thought they would have had
Oh, that's
AccuForce
right.
on there.
Yeah. It's a healthy wheel market. If you look just a couple years ago, this list was much shorter. So it's good to see. And hopefully Fanatec comes out with something new in 2023.
All right, Brian, who needs a curved monitor when you can actually just bend one?
Yeah, I think we've had one other monitor that did, but this is a Corsair. They're taking pre-orders for their Xeon Flex. They say it's the world's first bendable 21 by 9 OLED gaming monitor. So it's a 21 by 9 standard looking monitor until you grab the edges and you fold it in and it curves. So pretty neat, interesting, it's just an interesting idea. Um, my concern is, when you fold it in, how does the screen not crumple or fold on itself? You can't. I mean, to me, it seems like you would definitely get some kind of distortion where the screen starts to bend. But um, I don't know. Maybe it's something that they figured out somehow. If it's flat enough, maybe it can be done. But I'd like to see, like real world testing done on this before I give it my full support.
Yeah, it's a little weird, and it's expensive, $2,000. I mean, I don't think it's worth it for that kind of price. I mean, but I guess the
Yeah.
idea is, hey, I'm gonna work on it on a flat screen during the day, and I'll bend it at night and game on it.
I almost bought the folding phone when I was looking at my next upgrade, and I was kind of talked out of it because of the crease that would build in those.
Yeah, and that's the same thing I'd be concerned about with running one of these monitors. Um, it's just physics means that when you shorten the radius of that thing, it's got to go somewhere. Um, so unless they figured something out that compensates for it, or if it's so thin that it doesn't have a radius change because of that, maybe. But yeah, like I said, I really like to see somebody test this out to see how well it does.
You get the 10-year-old on there. Oh, I bent it a little too much, or
Oh boy, Mike, I'm glancing at the next article and I'm thinking, really, didn't we just get the 40s, and now we're already talking about the 50s from Nvidia?
well, that's kind of what tech industry does. They're always talking about the next new thing, and that's what we've heard on NVIDIA's RTX 50 series are going to turn out to be the first mainstream PCM-based GPU from the company, if recent reports are to be believed. Not only that, but Blackwell architecture could very well bring the largest performance leap in the company's history. NVIDIA recently confirmed this Blackwell GPU architecture will be releasing in 2024.
I think you said PCM, but it's actually MCM. If anybody's get wanting to watch for what the acronym means, I don't know what MCM means or PCM.
Well, it's good to hear that there's improvement can be made. I mean, at some point, you would think they've they've got the chips as thin as they can get them and as fast as they're going to get them and that kind of thing. But according to this, it sounds like we're going to have another huge leap.
Well, the chips are getting so small; they're reaching the boundaries of where the uncertainty principle, if you want to talk physics, starts to get in the way and make the computations nearly impossible. So we're there's this thing called Moore's law, and at some point, it's going to run out.
Until you get to nano computers, I guess.
They already are nano.
Okay.
The size of the transistors is measured in nanometers.
Yeah, I think it's rumored the new iPhone 15 for next year is going to be at the 2 nm nanometers, 2. I got the next one. This is just an update on what I mentioned before about the new Fanatec driver and FanaLab software update. We heard from listener Cody Richardson on Discord. He said on FanaLab, it has always had the ability to use profiles, and the gentleman that was making the setups in the forums, he's been doing it for 2 years now. They just don't do a very good job telling their customers about it. And he said it looks like the difference in the software is now it can automatically load the car profile in for you. Saves him a couple of steps for sure.
I seem to remember when you were getting in The practice race, you asked which profile you should use, and you named two drivers that I'd never heard of.
Dan Suzuki. You haven't heard of him? He's a YouTube streamer, and I think he works for Gomez now.
Nope.
And the other guy I mentioned was Daniel Morad. Now, what I do, I race SimiCube, not Fanatec. So with SimiCube, they have a search engine built right into the software where you can search, GT3 car, and it will bring up a list of what profiles that iRacers have put up, and you just can like literally click it, and it loads, and you're running it. So that's how I've actually ran my wheel. I have yet to set a profile by myself. I've been using other people's profiles the whole time.
So you're down with OPP.
OPP.
It was an old rap song. You're supposed to be a music guy too, man. Come on.
Right over my head.
I think it was a '90s rap song. It meant other people's problems back then, and the hook of the song was "You're down with OPP." All right, Mike, you've kind of become our wheel guy. Why don't you talk a little bit about Grid MPX?
Yeah, it's available for pre-order for their MPX Formula wheel. Now, Grid is that Grid Engineering by SimLab, and I don't know. I mean, it's got a look to it that is a little different. I like the grips; they do look nice. There's different colors if schemes as you scroll through the pictures. Five knobs in the middle, and five or so buttons on each side within your thumb, for your thumb. A couple rotaries there for bias and whatnot. Yeah, your normal formula wheel. No screen, nothing fancy like that. A screw-on cable connector, double set of paddles.
Yeah, you almost don't get you a Formula wheel unless you have two sets at this point. I would say.
Agreed. Yeah, and some of them you get three now.
Well, yeah, the advanced power module that I use has, or pedal module, module has that, the three, and it was really handy with the manual boost on the LMP. But now I actually use it to just switch modes when we're in the hybrid.
It's €1,000, but on early bird pricing at 875. I don't know, man. There's so many offerings right now. So you really got to set yourself apart somehow. And I don't know that they have.
Yeah, it's almost like they have to just kind of squeeze into the market nowadays, right?
You just put something out there and try to gain traction, really.
Mm. Well, where I was going with that is Brian. If you look at the next one, it looks like they're really trying to squeeze all of the motion hardware into a real tight space.
Yeah, this is a new one from TS Custom, the Response Pro. It's a compact motion simulator, but it's really interesting because it's all motorized as far as the adjustments go on it. So there's a motorized toggle switches for moving the seat back and forward, to moving the pedals around, and even moving the steering um, geometry. So it's really interesting looking, and really customizable with all those mechanical adjustments to it. Um, it's yeah, it's a they call it a hyper simulator. It's the first time I think I've heard that term. Um, but it's pretty amazing. And I don't have the link to the actual websites. I don't see any pricing. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those deals where there's no, you got to call for a price.
Now, what's interesting
Sure.
is all of the pistons are on the back, and it actually has a couple of them actuators kind of moving the upper back portion of the seat forward. Right, it's almost like it's got two shoulder pistons and then two hip pistons, all four on the back.
You see how it moves the brake pedals around? I mean,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah, they're almost like triple axles where it kind of folds itself up. It's really neat. Um, and it does have it does have motion when you're driving it, but it's they're actuators that are from the back of the seat that kind of move you front and backwards and side to side. So it's not like the full platform is moving, just the seat within it.
Yeah, they're all on the back, two attached
Yeah,
on the shoulder, and then the two kind of moving the whole seat down at or moving the seat more more like roll for the seat, whereas the two in the back are kind of more pitch and yaw.
yeah, really, really interesting system there. You really got to check it out if you go onto our website and go to this TS Customs Response Pro and look how this thing works. It's pretty amazing.
All right, I'm gonna throw
Yeah,
the next one to. Oh, go ahead, man.
I was gonna say I Googled it and I didn't find any website to buy it.
I'm gonna throw this one over to Kyle for this monitor if he's got his buttons working.
Yep, we're good now. All right. So the LG Ultra Gear 48 gaming monitor. Uh, I watched this video actually before I even realized it was on the script, and this monitor is amazing. There is another one we're going to talk about that is actually amazing too. But this thing's got a massive large screen. Just the color transition.
And we lost him.
Oh, we lost him.
Yeah, his Discord froze as well. All
All
right.
right, well, I'll take over because I also watched this and was drooling. And this was a big topic in our chat over this week. I was like putting this in there and saying, you know what? This is the ultimate monitor for triples. 48 inches, razor thin. The bezels are razor thin. And as Kyle had already stated, it looks absolutely amazing as far as the quality. The specs are through the roof. I mean, 1 millisecond, and it's not a TV, guys. It is a monitor, specifically a gaming monitor, and the specs really point to that. Yeah. So
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Will Ford at Boosted Media. He's got those triple 60s, but they're like 15 grand each. So this is a little bit more within the more price range for average Joes.
these are 1,000 each. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's a
so
lot more
three of them
reliable.
is 3,000, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think these are the size at 48 inch where you set up the triples in front of your cockpit, not like right above the wheel like my 27s are. You would have it out in front of you, kind of like Will Ford does. And if you get the right distance right, it would be just perfect, I think. And I think I always thought his 60s were probably too big. This might be a good sweet spot for those standalone triples. And the price is right. And the quality is right. And the bezels are thin. And it has a Visa mount. The cabling is not where the Visa mount will be. I mean, it checks all the boxes for an iRacer. It really does. It's got DisplayPort, it, all that, so you can drive. Um, I don't know what they call it, 4K, 144 hertz. I think it's what they call it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do remember seeing that on there.
And then there's a HDMI 2.1 that carries that extra bandwidth, and it's capable of that as well. So how much would it take to upgrade to this triples? I mean, 3,000 for the monitors, maybe another thousand, conservatively for the stand or stands. So $4,000 project, and then you have to have a computer to drive it.
And so it's time to get
Right.
that GTX 50.
Exactly. Do most cards have three display ports on them though? I don't
Actually,
think they
four.
do, right? They have four display ports.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. I don't
Well,
have the four
they
Ks yet.
they come in a weird configuration, and it kind of depends on each card. Some will have two display ports and a mini USB port and a HDMI port. So they I think that's what mine has. So they come in some weird configurations, but they have four ports. Sometimes you just have to use adapters.
I always thought at some point I'm gonna get better triples because I bought like the cheapest crap monitors I could get for 27-inch, really thick bezels. They're crap, and I'd like to upgrade them at some point.
Yeah, but you had to have that butt kicker, right?
That's right.
All right, we have another wheel. This one is the P9XX. It looks like this is a pre-subscription so far or pre-order. It's coming from Sim Rep Engineering, right? And it's another
Yeah.
Formula wheel. It's got dual clutch on the back and as well as shifter pedals and your standard front button alignment too. Kind of looks more like a Ferrari setup. Well, no, this is the Porsche setup. In fact, I think it's supposed to be similar to the not. I think it's a Porsche rim essentially, and so it's because it says something on here in the description about being designed similar to an RSR.
This has a really high quality look to it, doesn't it? I mean, look at the paddles, the material on the paddles are made out of. This is not cheap, guys. It's 2,200 euros.
Oof.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks really nice. Like I said, the buttons, those knobs, those turn knobs, they look high end, and of course, it's got a display, and
If you look
I'm
in the
sure I
back,
like the grips.
yeah, and if you look in the back end, it's a screw-in connector.
Yep.
I think you
I
almost just
gotta,
about need that, don't you?
well, I gotta say, the Cube Controls brand with their magnetic chi connector or whatever they call it, man, that's leading the industry because that is so nice. Because if the wheel spins or something, the magnet's going to rip off and it's not going to destroy your wheel. And I have yet for it to even do that because the magnet's so strong. But if it ever came to it, it's not going to damage my wheel. Now, with the screw-in connector, you run out of slack while that thing is spinning, it's going to rip your right off. It's going to damage it. Freaking nice looking though. I have not heard of this company until this week though. Simrep-engineering.com. It looks nice. We put
Next up,
this one on the show, David, the next one for Greg, because we were talking about this last week.
well, he's not here. So why don't you tell me a little bit about it? It's a V-Rig S1.
The V-Rig is a highly adjustable simulator that can easily switch from road to rally to GT to Formula seating. And Greg had said that he was seriously considering this rig when he was shopping initially. Now, it's not motorized like the one we saw earlier on the show, but it is easy to manipulate the pedals, the seating position, the position of the wheelbase, and so forth, all very adjustable. And so, in just a few minutes, you could probably switch from one to the other.
It even has a compact kind of storage position where the pedals and the seat are right up against the wheel.
It's got a really nice triple monitor mount as well. That's very, triples. I don't know, Mike, how much trouble you had lining up the monitors, but this thing looks like it would be so easy to line up your monitors just the way you want them without having to go through a whole lot of a headache.
You're right. They got the adjustability built in. It's very easy to manipulate, like you said. I mean, when I did my triples, I made sure to buy those SimLab Visa. I forget what they call them, but they have a product that helps you align these Visa mounts, and they have little screws on them, so you can fine tune it. Like I need it a millimeter more to the right. You just go to the screw and twist it once, you know. And without those, yeah, it would be super difficult to get lined up.
All right, this next monitor, Brian, is literally almost wide enough that it could almost be as wide enough to count as triples, right?
Yeah, this is from Samsung, and they just recently revealed this G9 5SC. It's a 49-inch model that claims is the world's first 32 by 9 aspect ratio OLED gaming monitor. It's also remind us that the 34-inch monitor it reminds us of the 34-inch monitor that debuted in the fall of last year. But this thing's going to be coming out pretty soon, and man, it is a wide monitor. It's curved, of course. Um, so yeah, I don't think we've seen prices yet for it. Um, but I think the Odyssey, the other G9s are around $1,000. So I'm kind of curious where this one's going to come in at.
32 by 9. That is so wide, like you said.
Yeah, it looks like two regular widescreens put side by side. It's just amazing.
Well, that would be the math, wouldn't it? Because
Yeah, that's right.
the old letterbox is 16 by 9.
16 by 9. Yeah. So it's basically two regular 16 by 9 widescreen side by side in one curved monitor. I
It's
haven't seen any. Sorry.
3440 by 1440 resolution.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. What the resolution was.
Got Visa mount. All the specs are really good. It's OLED.
And this is. I'm sorry. This is actually a 57-inch wide. Sorry, I think I said 48. That was the older model. This is a 57, and it
Wow.
comes in 8K resolution.
8K. So the first thing about this, does iRacing support that resolution and that aspect ratio? I would guess not. I bet you end up with a letterbox, don't you think?
I kind of think you're right.
So I'm not sure about that, but I would guess you would end up with a letterbox if you were trying to punch in the numbers for this monitor. Now, if it did work and you wanted a rig with one monitor, boy, I think this is the one. I mean, I don't think I would do anything crazy like triples with this. I mean, if you tried triples with this, it would go like in a circle almost,
You're right.
because it's so wide. But if you're just buying one, man. But the thing is, it's so big, like you said, you wouldn't want to mount that right behind your wheel. I mean, you'd have to put it farther out because of how wide it is, I think. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Tyler was looking at this and thinking maybe that would something he would be considering instead of triples. And by the time you buy three monitors that are decent, you're probably right in the same price range as this without all the extra mounting stuff that you have to do with a triple monitor.
You're right, and I think he's on to something for sure because why do we do triples to begin with? It's all about getting that wide aspect ratio. And like you said, Brian, this one monitor gives you basically two monitors worth of aspect ratio, which is enough. I mean, is that the same as triples? Not quite, but how often am I turning my head all the way to the left or all the way to the right to see the corner of my triples? I'm not. It's in the peripheral vision. And this thing is so wide, it's giving you plenty of peripheral. I think you're going to be able to see the guys next to you um, with something like this. Freaking cool. If they support it, I don't know if I would buy it unless I know does it actually work in iRacing?
Good point.
All right. Well, Mike, as excited as you are about that monitor, I think you were equally as riled up about the next topic.
Yeah, I thought this was comical. So we've heard about the Thrustmaster DD wheel. They call it the T818. And now that it's out in the wild, I'm starting to see review videos and whatnot. Well, the two that I ran across, both of them had trouble mounting it to regular rigs that you everybody has. The first guy actually has three different brands rigs, and it didn't work on any of the three. And then another guy who did the second video, it didn't work on his either. In both cases, they had to drill holes in their existing rigs to be able to mount this thing.
Well, the first video, the guy actually found out that they make a mounting adapter to fit to a regular mounting holes. So you'd have to, and then he had to buy it. It was like 30 bucks, I think it was, around $30 to buy that adapter. And then he had to wait, however long it takes him to get it. So he's just sitting there waiting for it to come in.
What kind of I mean, what kind of genius is this, Brian? That Thrustmaster decided, to have a pattern that nobody uses.
Yeah, that's bad. I wonder if it has anything to do with the shape of it. This has got that what's it, hexagonal shape, where it's it doesn't have a real wide bottom. So maybe they were limited to how they can mount the holes. But I mean, you got to account for that. I mean, it's just not good business practice to make your product incompatible with what's already out there. You don't have the market pool to be able to make everybody adjust to your one wheel when everybody else uses something different.
You got somebody new to the scene like Donnie Spiker, who's been out there a year or two, and he's buying equipment like crazy, and he does his due diligence. And what is the one thing that he does due diligence about on a wheelbase? Man, I got to have a way to mount it. I got to have something to mount it to. And so if you were going to buy this Thrustmaster, and you're trying to do your diligence, am I going to be able to mount this thing to my rig without modifying it or buying extra parts or what? Wow.
All right, I'll kick the next one off because this one hits a little close to home since I have a 39 Ti. And the question on the topic is the NVIDIA 4070 Ti a 3090 Ti killer? Now, I didn't actually get to go through and watch the video with sound, but I just took a quick glance at the benchmarks. And it seems to me like, at least based on the benchmarks, the answer is no, it is not. In fact, the 3090 Ti seems to be outperforming.
Now,
Yeah,
sorry, Brian. I was
you
going to
could.
say the other caveat about this video is the 4070 Ti is actually the 4080 with 12 gigabytes. They're the same thing. So they weren't selling. So remember when they announced the 4090, they announced two versions of the 4080. I think a 16 gigabyte and a 12 gigabyte. And then nobody bought the 4080 with 12 gigabytes. And so now what they've done is they've rebranded it as the 4070 Ti. It's the same card.
It's exactly right. Yeah, and you're right too, David. The benchmarks weren't all that much different from the 3090. I think if you're doing the ray tracing, I think it performed a little bit better with the ray tracing um, enabled. But yeah, so I don't know. It's not it to me. So, and then the other thing, if you listen to the end of the video, he starts talking a lot about the pricing, the value of it, and the 3090 Ti's are still really expensive. They're still pushing anywhere from 15 to $2,000, and it's and the 4080s I think were cheaper than that. In a lot of places. So it was the pricing seems so out of whack on these video cards. It's hard to tell what's what, to be honest with you. But he yeah. So it's an interesting video to watch if you're video card shopping, and it'll give you a lot of input as to how crazy this market is right now.
I was seeing 3090s show up for just 1,000 after the 4000s came out.
Yeah, yeah. I think the prices might pop back up a little bit. That's what he said. He said, when the crypto stuff crashed and people weren't buying them quite as much for crypto mining and stuff like that, the prices came down a bit. But he's saying he thinks some of the prices have bounced back up on the 3090s.
All right, Mike, wrap us up with talking about butt kicker settings.
Yeah, YouTuber Get Good Racing posted a video showing his best settings for the new Butt Kicker Gamer Pro, which is what I just bought. Um, he said that he didn't like the what they call Hapti Connect software that Butt Kicker provides. I'm still using it, and I think it's okay. Um, he's using SimHub. Um, and what he's done in SimHub is he's actually set up different profiles for the base shakers by car. So he's got one for the F1 car. He's got one for the NASCAR. He's got one for the GT3. And he has the sliders set a little differently for each one. So he's actually gotten every car and tweaked it to how he liked it. And he literally shows you all his settings. Um, now what he does is he has enable LFE turned on in the sim, and he's got the slider set there, but he's got several things turned off. He's only got four or five things up, and he calls this kind of the baseline. Then he sends that into SimHub, and then he does the profile by car. So I haven't thought about doing profile by car. If they could automate it, it might be cool. But otherwise, it sounds just like more work, stuff to adjust. I try to find settings that are going to work across all the cars. Uh, and I guess the other thing about this video it taught me is there are profiles in SimHub where you can pick different things and call them different things and adjust separately. Pretty cool.
Guess what time it is? It's time to jump into some results. And it looks like y'all got tired of skipping Watkins Glen, or got happy that Watkins Glen was over anyway, and jumped right in once Michigan started up.
Yeah, I went to Michigan and was excited to get back to normal ovals, but it was P21 for me. I realized right off the bat this is a can be a one-stop race if I drive the car right from the beginning. So I save fuel like crazy because I'm watching my fuels, my third-party app. I know I can save enough. I want to save enough so I don't have to save a lot in the second run. I want to try to save an extra lap or so in the first run so I can run harder in the second run. So I'm saving like crazy to make it. So I made it. So I'm dead last by the time there were 3 or 4 of us that were in the back of the pack that were really saving fuel, and I was one of them. And I was dead last basically as we came to the first green flag stop, but I was totally shocked that the lead group, they made it halfway too. I have no idea how they were so fast, and I was like pedaling. I was 90% on the throttle the whole time on the straightaways and totally lifting in the corners and letting it coast. I was doing all this crazy stuff and they were way faster than me and somehow they made it halfway and I didn't. I mean, I did make it, but as well, but they made it as well. So my whole strategy of going slow is stupid because I don't know. I don't think if I would have went fast with the group, I wouldn't have made it to halfway. So I don't know what they're doing that I'm not doing, but I'm not doing it.
Sounds like every OBRL race I've ever been in is like how these guys are still going fast and saving fuel. It's amazing.
It is. I was just kind of flabbergasted by the whole thing. Anyway, later, there was a caution that came out right after the green flag stop. Later on, I got involved in an incident when a guy let off the gas way early into the corner, and I actually ran over him. Several minutes of damage. Yeah, it was not good. I mean, he let off the gas. He didn't hit the brake, but and the car slowed dramatically, and I he did it like maybe 10 car lengths before I normally would, and I plowed right into him. And a little dismayed. I was running the fixed set, and I was in open, and I think that was part of my problem too. And so I'm probably going to be one and done at Michigan after that dismal race. Moving on to other official. Now this is my bread and butter. The F2000 at Olton Park qualified P5 out of 14. Qualified fifth. Got to got up to P2 by lap one, but got ran over from behind in a corner and fell back to fifth. I worked my way back up to finish P2. Great run. Qualified 6 out of 10 on the next one, finished sixth. Then I moved to the big car, the Indy Pro 2000 at Olton Park. Qualified fifth, finished fourth. Then Skip Barber at Bathurst. Qualified 6 out of 14, got to P4 by the end of lap one and ended up finishing P3. My first podium ever at Bathurst. In the pro, I also ran at Road Atlanta. Qualified 12th out of 19, spun off on my own twice, but saved the car and still finished P9. Then I switched back down to the F2000 at Road Atlanta, qualified ninth out of 16 on the first lap, got into it with a guy who was super aggressive. He knocked off my front wing. I had to pit for repairs. I came back out, finished 12th. Then Indy Pro 2000 at Road Atlanta, qualified ninth out of 15. I spun off on my own and turned in turn one, lap one, and destroyed the car. I suck. David, IMSA, the Glen.
Yeah, I kicked it off with a wreck, just an unavoidable accident, and then the next race, this was while I was still on vacation. I wrecked just locking the brakes up on my own. Then had a P6, P5, P3, P4, and this one was kind of funny because I had 6 minutes of optimal damage and was like 4 seconds off the pace, but still came in P4. This damage happened because the GT3 car right on the exit of turn eight. He got just loose enough as I was trying to time it, and I took I took the full exit and was then going to pull right and pass him on the straight, but because he got loose, he wasn't as far down the track, and as a result, I hit him. Anytime a car gets loose in the acceleration zone when you're on the gas right behind him, it's usually bad news. But the DTP field was just so sloppy that it was still a good finish. And then this week at or in the Euro Sprint Series, I ran a few races at Monza as well. On those, I had a P3, P7, P6, P7, and P4. Le Mans, I popped into one of the first races and I got a P9 in a 3,500 strength of field and was just kind of freaked out at the field because, especially in the LMP class, or not LMP, but the LMDH, they had a 10K driver on the track. And then I ran a couple other races after that, P8 and P8.
Right. Posted. I ran 87s at Talladega. They had a caution halfway, but it wasn't enough for fuel. I was leading coming up to the white and ran out of fuel on the backstretch. Then we switched to the Riley Daytona prototypes at Texas, finished P9. Back to the 87s at Talladega. I started 37th, was wrecked out. Then supercars at Michigan. Started in the back, got to P3. Man, that's so fun when you get up to the front from the back. And then Pro Mazda at Lanier Dirt was a total shit show. I mean, no damage, damage is turned off, and I was slow compared to some of the guys that were fast, and I was in the way a lot, and yeah, it was kind of ugly. But I finished the race, and then um, the other day, David, you got a group of us to race in a hosted. I think it was put up by Mad Racing,
Mad Sim.
24-hour practice race.
Yeah, Mad Sim. That's the guys that I'm teamed up with for the majors, and probably run most of my other endurance races with them when y'all aren't interested in running them. And yeah, they hosted one, and it was a really good turnout too. They have a really good community going. And there was a field of like 30, 35 cars there. They had the practice open for 2 hours, and then ran a 45-minute race. And half of the LMP field was us.
Yeah, I got P4. I like you said before, I ran the front tire off the first half of the race. I think I told you, David, this thing is so freaking tight push, and you said you're driving it too hard. And I took that uh, I changed my style of driving after hearing that, and I think I figured out why I was wearing out the tire for the last half of the race. I was just trying too hard on braking is what was happening, and but it's kind of backed off a little, and I think I figured out the tires, but I was able to get around the track without wrecking the car. Kyle, you were there with us. You went off track once and had to get reset, I think.
I think Kyle had to go. He was having technical issues. Yeah,
Okay,
he got loose at some point and
and
just
Greg was
looped the
there.
car. Yeah, Greg finished P2 right in front of me. I finished P3. I had like finally passed him, but he just always uses a little less fuel than me, and so he didn't have to take as much and frog leaped me right on the pit. And at that point, actually, for the most part, he had just a little bit more pace as well. I just when I got by him, I really took advantage of a traffic situation.
All right, let's talk Winter League at Homestead. DNF. I got loose and overcorrected, and man, I hit the wall, knocking off the right front. I had really good tire wear the first run, but wrecking the car doesn't help that much. David, P13.
Yeah, I know Steve and Greg both wrecked out. Steve got involved in, I think, the first caution. I don't remember what took Greg out. So I ended up being the only one to finish. I know we had a late caution because it ran green for a really long time. And when the caution came out, I said, "Is anyone here?" Because I actually ended up having to take a wave around and race the last of the race on old tires. I don't know if the late caution helped or hurt. I don't know if I would have ended up finishing a little bit better. There were some guys who I knew were going to have to pit again that managed to get to stay on the lead lap. So that might have cost a couple of spots, maybe. But I finally didn't make any major mistakes or get caught up in anybody else's.
I did check Steve Thompson's replay. He actually practiced and had a long run practice and everything. And then he went in there and he got loose actually on his own and took out another guy, but had significant damage and left the room quickly. He was upset with himself, I'm sure. OBRL Cup, Brian, P23, Kentucky.
Yeah, we raced at Kentucky Sunday night in the OBR. I I was I didn't get to practice because my kid needed me for something, and he he bugged me right up until practice was ending. So, um, but I got into the race, and I was going to just start in the back, which is okay, um, because of not having any practice. So, um, the I started getting to the screen where where everybody's gridding up, and then I noticed I had like the extra mirror on because I was using a different car, and I guess I using two mirrors. So I had plenty of time before the green was going to start, so I hopped out and unchecked it. So I just had the one mirror on the side and the virtual mirror up top, but it wouldn't let me back in, and I had to start from the pits. So I thought that as long as you jump back in before the green flags, before the pace car takes off, that you could get back in the race. But either I mistimed it, which I don't think I did, or I wasn't allowed to get back in for whatever reason. So so by the time I got out of the pits, I was already a lap down, and I was just kind of just just taking it easy, just running around, getting using it as some extended practice. After I got some laps in, I had some decent pace, but you know I was just falling too far behind. I tried to run do a long run strategy where everybody was pitting with at lap 50 because it was a 150 lap race. So people were planning on pitting at 50 and 100. So they were pitting at 50, and I tried to stretch it out to the very end and see if a caution might help me out, but it never really did. So um, I finished B23, which it was still a 37 car field, so it was a big field still. And considering starting to pit, I'll take a P23. What the heck?
All right. Let's jump to final thoughts then. Brian McCubbin.
All right, so yeah, looking forward to the Chili Bowls this weekend. So it's always one of the highlights of the race season because it's one of the few dirt track races that they broadcast that is it's a lot of hoopla and a lot of eyes on it. So uh, I was telling everybody I was a little disappointed. There's some guys who typically are in it, Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell, who've won a lot of these things. I think they've won 4 out of the last 5 years, and they decided not to run it this year. So I was a little disappointed that to not have those guys in it. But there's still a lot of good drivers in it, and it's still a real fun race to watch. So if you're not doing anything Saturday night, I think it's on Mav TV. I don't think it's on a network. So if you have Mav TV, then you'll be able to check it out.
All right, very good. David Hall, final thoughts.
Not a whole lot. Back to work, so not nearly as much racing, but still enough to get through the days. Looking forward to running the 24 and hoping I get a chance to close the race out. All we gotta do is stay out of the pits.
All right, Greg Hectus, final thoughts. Greg, okay. My final thoughts, the beta UI. I'm going to keep talking about it because guess what? I'm having trouble. I went to go into Michigan at the Winter NIS about 5 minutes before the race, and I fresh boot on the computer. I load my third party error 22. Please exit the sim and try again. So I quickly exit the sim and launch from the website. Again, loading error 22. I'm out of time. Oh crap. I reboot the computer and I go straight to the website and I launch and it launches. And again, I think this is caused by launching from the beta UI. I have never had so many problems in my life in all the years I've been with iRacing launching sessions as I have had since I went cold turkey on the beta UI for launching. I've had to resort to the website to get the session up. I think this is the fourth or fifth time now since I've gone cold turkey. If they're really going to get rid of the website, in March, they need to button this up. I mean, this is just silly. So after that little rant, I'm having fun with the Indy Pro 2000. As you recall, I was really discouraged the first week because I couldn't drive the car, but it's starting to come around to me. And it's been a lot of fun as I get used to it. I'm starting to get a little speed now, getting through the corners quick and that kind of thing. So, hey, with that, we'll see you on the track later.